Brian took a bouquet of roses out of the car and gave it to Vanessa while asking her, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" Excited, she hugged him and kissed him. "Yeah. Yes, I want, but right now I can't. I can't give you everything I want. I don't need you to give me anything. I know that you don't ask me for anything, but as a couple, I couldn't give you. It doesn't matter, I don't love you for that. I do want to. It's just, right now I can't. I'm going to be traveling and with 1,000 things and I care about you a lot. I don't want to ruin it." Witness protection turned him into a girl. Part 13. Don't worry, really, I'm not in a hurry. Everything will be at your own pace, when we are completely sure of taking each step, not before. I only want to be with you. Really? I only want to be with you. Vanessa kissed him again. Then yes? Brian asked. Yes. Vanessa responded. They returned hugging to meet the others at the restaurant. When they saw them approaching, Brian hugging her and her with the roses in her hands, Kim and Kathy began to ask, "What happened? Is it done?" Brian just smiled big to answer them and they ran to hug them. "Congratulations, friend. You already have your first boyfriend. You have to tell us everything." In the following weeks, were like a new stage for Vanessa. The courtship with Brian wasn't really physical or sexual, it was much more a matter of mutual attention, affection, and sharing interests. They walked around the school hugging or holding hands, and of course there were kisses, some simply tender, but others more intense that provoked unknown emotions and desires in Vanessa. Without fear of being wrong, she could define those weeks as the happiest of her life. She was only worried about thinking that the time would come when she would have to tell Brian the truth. But that truth was increasingly blurred. During that month, the time had come when every time she thought about the future, she saw herself as a woman. She visualized herself as a young student, as a professional woman, as a wife and sometimes even as a mother. He soon realized that he was no longer attracted to other girls, then she had to admit that she could no longer think of herself as Alejandro and that almost unconsciously, she had already decided how she wanted to live the rest of her life. A couple of weeks later, Alejandro was called back for trial. This time, the transformation from Vanessa to Alejandro seemed easier in terms of the process. Because everyone already knew the procedure and because for the first time the boobs seemed to have not grown from the B-plus cup that they had measured a little over a month before. Emotionally the change was a little more difficult. Alejandro saw himself in the mirror and didn't recognize himself. It was as if that boy was invading Vanessa's life and having to act like a man. He felt forced and out of place. At the trial, not everything went as well as they expected. When the prosecutor asked Alejandro how he had entered the criminal organization, Alejandro commented that the son of President Lopez, from Mexico, had invited him, saying this way he could make quick money. But before they could continue, the judge called the lawyers and forbade them from any mention of President Lopez or his family. "We are not going to provoke an international incident in my court," the judge said in addressing the jurors. He asked them not to take the last statement into account. With that, Alejandro's participation ended in a series of incriminating evidence and testimonies that Alejandro had obtained from the Cupcake House or from his relationship with the children of the President of Mexico were lost. Even so, photos and comments about that moment were material for all the news programs and newspapers in the country. It was a national scandal in which members of the state governments of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona and Florida were found guilty of major charges such as illegal drug trafficking, criminal association, human trafficking and promoting forced prostitution, but the governors and other really influential people were only mentioned or found guilty of minor crimes, and if anything, they had to pay fines. The trial ended and Vanessa returned to her apartment with a bittersweet feeling. Many had been imprisoned, many others had been exposed, and the human trafficking organization had suffered significant damage, but had clearly not been dismantled. The power and money of those involved had been enough to affect the justice system and, of course, Vanesa's trust in the system. It wasn't so much a matter of worrying about her safety, at least so far. Special Agents Costello and McLeod had proven to be reliable and assured her that once the trial was over, there was less reason for the cartel to invest too much time or money looking for her. It was more the disappointment of knowing that very soon the entire child trafficking network would be re-established and that the President of Mexico needed nothing more than to declare in his conferences that everything was a plot to affect his image. Agent Costello told Alejandro that for safety reasons, they would wait a few weeks before contacting him to define everything related to his relocation and the government's conditions to continue in the witness protection program. Take advantage of these weeks to think and decide how you want to live the rest of your life. Vanesa was ready to respond at that moment. I think that. Ivan stopped her. Don't tell me anything right now. Think about it. It can be one of the most important decisions of your life, and it is not only if you want to continue being Vanesa, or if you prefer to change your identity and live as a man. It is the opportunity that almost no one has to start again from scratch. We will contact you in a few weeks to see each other. During those weeks, life continued seemingly normal at the school. The premiere of the play Grease was approaching, and with that, the rehearsals were increasingly demanding. The volleyball team had qualified for the interstate tournament, and as if that were not enough, applications had been sent to the universities and the students were under the constant stress of waiting for a response. With all this, Vanesa was generally very happy with that super active life, and especially with being able to share all that with her friends and with Brian, who surprised her with some detail every day. One day it was a flower, another, a home-cooked dinner, or simply an affectionate word. Vanesa felt loved, but knew that she had to face the moment of telling Brian the truth. This topic did not let her sleep. Although she tried to imagine positive scenarios, she always ended up imagining herself exposed, rejected and ridiculed not only by Brian but by the entire school. Furthermore, if the issue became public, her identity could be exposed and her life could even be in danger. She didn't want to take the risk, and the easiest thing was to simply wait until they finished school to go to some distant university to start her new life under the witness protection program. But she was not calm with that. She perceived it as evading a responsibility, and above all, she would not forgive herself over continuing to deceive Brian, much less the possibility that Brian would want to maintain a long-distance relationship based on a big lie. As she thought about it, the days passed and the acceptance letters began to arrive. Karhi was accepted to the University of Louisiana to study clinical psychology. Kim received invitations for interviews at the University of Louisiana, Tennessee, and New York State. It still needed to be decided which was better. Vanesa received an interview invitation, but in reality, it was just the appointment with Special Agent Costello and a witness protection officer in 3 days. Brian received invitations to study journalism at Harvard and the University of Vermont. There didn't seem to be much competition in that decision. The day before her date with Costello, Vanesa showed up at Brian's house determined to tell him the whole truth. Brian's mother greeted her, as always, kind and affectionate. She sat her in the living room and offered her a drink while Brian came down. This made Vanesa feel worse because she was sure that this afternoon would be the last time she would see Brian. When Brian came down, he greeted her with a hug and kiss, to which she reacted nervously and uncomfortable. Brian noticed it immediately and asked if something was wrong. Vanesa lowered her head and said, "Yes, but can we talk?" "Of course, baby, whatever you want." Brian notified his mother and they went up to his room. Vanesa had never been there before. It was a typical teenager's bedroom. Not in perfect order, but reasonably clean. The first thing that caught Vanesa's attention was finding a stack of newspaper clippings next to Brian's laptop. The first was a front page of the New York Times with a color photo of Alejandro testifying on the stand. She couldn't help but let her curiosity show. What's that? It is the topic I used for the newspaper article I sent to the universities with my application, Brian said, while offering a chair to Vanessa. What happened? What do you want to talk about? I had wanted to tell you the truth for a long time, but don't worry, my girl, just tell me what you want. I just don't even know where to start. Start at the beginning and tell me just the way you're thinking about it. Just, if you don't want to see me ever again, please, let me try to explain everything to you, and then you can think about it calmly, okay? Can you promise me that? I swear I didn't want to deceive you. Neither to you nor to anyone. I promise you. I have no reason to think that you wanted to deceive us. Yes, I have done it. From the beginning. Everything is a lie. Do you want to explain to me, my girl? I am not. I'm not a girl, I'm not Vanessa, I'm nothing you know. Finally she said between tears. Everything is a lie. That's all for today. If you like this story, please comment, tell me what do you think should happen with Vanessa. Also, please like and subscribe.